So let's read Peppa Pig Advent Calendar number 14. Grampy Rabbit's Hovercraft.
Okay, so now let's read Grampy Rabbit's Hovercraft. Grandpa Pig is taking Peppa and George out for the first time on his sailing boat. "Hello, old bean," says Mr. Stallion. "Grandpa, that man just called you an old bean," cried Peppa. "It's another way of saying old friend," says Grandpa Pig. "Now, where did I leave my boat?" says Grandpa Pig. "What does your boat look like, Grandpa?" asks Peppa. "It has a little red flag on top of the mast," says Grandpa Pig. "Like that little flag?" asks Peppa. "Oh dear, Grandpa Pig's sailing boat has sunk." Here is Grampy Rabbit on his hovercraft. Vroom! Grampy Rabbit zoomed past the boat. "What is that monstrosity?" asked Mr. Stallion. "Is it allowed at the sailing club?" asked Mr. Corgi. Grampy Rabbit reaches Peppa and George. "Hello," shouted Grampy Rabbit. "What a marvelous day for sailing." "Hello, Grampy Rabbit," says Peppa. "Grandpa Pig, you look sad," says Grampy Rabbit. "What's the matter?" "We can't go sailing because our boat has sunk," says Peppa. "Why don't you hop on my hovercraft?" suggests Grampy Rabbit. "You can't drive the things around here," says Grandpa Pig. "You are not a member of the sailing club." "Well, you are a member, aren't you?" replied Grampy Rabbit. "So I'm sure it will be perfectly fine." Peppa and George and Grandpa Pig board Grampy Rabbit hovercraft. "Hold on to your head," shouted Grampy Rabbit as they zoom across the sea. Grampy Rabbit's hovercraft can go on land and water. Mr. Stallion and Mrs. Corgi are enjoying a peaceful day sailing. "Oh, what's that horrible noise?" cried Mrs. Corgi. "It's that monstrosity again," says Mr. Stallion. "Whippy! Ha ha!" says Grampy Rabbit. Grampy Rabbit stopped at the Sailing Club cafe to get some juice. "This is the life, eh?" says Grampy Rabbit. "The sea and the sky and the boat sailing by." "But the boat are not sailing by, Grampy Rabbit," says Peppa. "There's no wind," says Grandpa Pig. "Without wind, sailing boat can't sail." Suddenly they hear voices calling for help. "It's Mr. Stallion and Mrs. Corgi. We need to rescue them," Grampy Rabbit says Peppa. Grampy Rabbit zooms toward the shouting. "Ahoy there," he calls. "We can't get back to the dock without the wind," says Mrs. Corgi. "Toss me a line and I'll tow you back in," says Grampy Rabbit. Grampy Rabbit hovercraft tows the sailing boat back to the shore. "We are towing the boat to shore, we are towing the boat to shore," sings Grampy Rabbit. "We are towing the boat to the car park, towing the boat to be parked," sings Grampy Rabbit. "Now you don't have so far to walk to your cars." "But sailing boat don't go on land like hovercraft," gasped Grandpa Pig. "Grandpa Pig, who is your friend?" asked Mr. Stallion. "We must thank him for rescuing us." "His name is Grampy Rabbit," replied Grandpa Pig. "Grampy Rabbit, delighted to meet you, old bean," says Mr. Stallion. "You too, old bean," replied Grampy Rabbit. That's the end.
The end.